Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarms started screaming. The hot liquid spilled across his uniform as he jumped up from his desk. Red lights flashed throughout the orbital defense station, and his computer screen showed dozens of warning messages. "Commander, we have a massive object approaching the outer system," called out Lieutenant Kevin Brooks from the sensor station. His voice was tight with worry. "It's big, sir. Really big." Jake rushed to the main command center. Through the large windows he could see Earth spinning slowly below them. The blue planet looked peaceful and safe, but the readings on the screens told a different story. "Show me what we're dealing with," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of something huge moving through space. It was dark and twisted, like a mountain that had been broken and burned. Strange lights blinked along its surface, but they were fading fast. "Distance?" Jake asked. 2 million kilometers and closing, Kevin replied. "But sir, it's not moving like any ship we know. The trajectory is all wrong and it's leaking atmosphere." Jake studied the readings. Whatever this thing was, it was dying. "Are we picking up any signals?" "That's the strange part, Commander. We're getting broadcasts on multiple frequencies. Listen to this." The speakers crackled with static, then voices came through. They weren't human voices. They were higher-pitched, musical almost, but filled with desperation. Behind the alien sounds, Jake heard something that made his blood run cold. Crying, children crying. "Get me President Carter on the secure line," Jake ordered. "And wake up the linguistics team. We need to figure out what they're saying." An hour later, Jake stood in the communications room with Dr. Amy Chen, Earth's best language expert. She had dark circles under her eyes from being woken up so early, but her fingers flew across the translation computers. "I'm getting fragments," she said without looking up. "The word help keeps repeating in at least 7 different languages. Some I recognize from our databases, others are completely new." "Keep working on it," Jake said. His phone buzzed with an urgent message. The president wanted to see him. Immediately, President William Carter looked older than his 50 years as he sat behind his desk in the White House. The morning light streaming through the windows made the worry lines on his face look deeper. "Tell me what we know," Carter said as Jake entered the room. "An alien vessel, probably a refugee ship based on the signals we're receiving. It's badly damaged and filled with what sound like families. They're asking for help in multiple languages." Carter rubbed his forehead. "How many are we talking about?" "Our scans suggest around 50,000 life forms, sir. The ship is huge, but it's falling apart. If we don't do something soon, they'll all die. And if we let them approach Earth?" "Unknown, sir. But they don't seem hostile. Just desperate." Carter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people were going about their normal lives, unaware that first contact with aliens was happening right above their heads. "What does the military think?" "General Stone wants to destroy the ship before it gets closer. She says we can't risk it. And you think?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "I think they're running from something terrible, sir, and they chose to come to us for help." 2 hours later, Captain Lisa Martinez was suiting up for the most important mission of her life. She had been chosen to lead the first contact team because of her calm nature and experience with dangerous situations. "Remember," Jake told her over the radio, "we don't know what we're dealing with. Be careful but be kind. They've been through hell." Lisa's shuttle approached the alien ship slowly. Up close, it was even more impressive and terrifying. The hull was made of some kind of living material that pulsed weakly like a dying heartbeat. Sections had been torn away, showing the dark interior. "I'm seeing docking ports," reported her pilot, Lieutenant Sam Davis. "They look compatible with our systems, almost like they were designed for us." "That's impossible," Lisa said, but as they got closer, she saw he was right. The docking port fit their shuttle perfectly. As they connected to the alien ship, Lisa felt her heart racing. Through the airlock window, she could see movement in the dim corridors beyond. Tall, graceful figures moved slowly through pools of blue light. The airlock hissed open, and Lisa stepped into another world. The corridor was filled with warm, humid air that smelled like ocean water. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns. But what caught her attention were the aliens themselves. They were beautiful and alien at the same time. Tall as humans but thinner, with skin that seemed to be made of translucent blue crystal. Their large eyes held intelligence and kindness, but also deep sadness. When they saw Lisa, several of them made soft musical sounds. One of them stepped forward. It was older than the others, with darker blue patterns across its skin. When it spoke, Lisa was surprised to hear broken English mixed with the musical alien language. Help, please. We... dying. Lisa activated her translation device and spoke slowly. I'm Captain Lisa Martinez from Earth. We want to help you. Can you tell me who you are? The alien's eyes brightened. I am Kethvar, elder of Zilani people. We flee. Homegone, Star Eater came. Through broken conversation and the translation device, Lisa learned their story. The Zilani had lived on a water world for thousands of years. They were peaceful people who had never known war. Then something called the Void Cascade had appeared in their system, consuming their sun and planet. The survivors had loaded onto this bioship, one of the few vessels that had survived. For 3 years, they had traveled from star to star, asking for help. 17 different alien civilizations had turned them away. Some were afraid. Others just didn't care about refugees. Earth, last hope, Kethvar said, his voice barely a whisper. If you say no, we die in dark. Lisa looked around at the dying ship and the desperate people. She saw children with their parents, old ones being cared for by the young. They had lost everything and traveled across the galaxy just to survive. I need to talk to my leaders, she told Kethvar. But I promise you this, Earth will not turn you away. When Lisa returned to the shuttle, her hands were shaking. She had seen things that would change humanity forever. But more than that, she had made a promise to 50,000 dying refugees. Back on Earth, President Carter sat in the Situation Room with his top advisors. The room was filled with tension as they debated what to do. It's too dangerous, argued General Patricia Stone. We don't know anything about these aliens. They could be carrying diseases, or this could be some kind of invasion plan. 50,000 people, Patricia, Carter replied. Men, women, and children who have nowhere else to go. They're not people, sir. They're aliens. They're refugees, Carter said firmly. And they're dying. The debate went on for hours. Some advisors worried about public panic. Others feared alien contamination. But Carter kept thinking about Lisa's report and the word that had come through clearly in every language the aliens had spoken. Help. As the sun set over Washington, Carter made his decision. He picked up the red phone that connected directly to the orbital station. Commander Morrison, this is the President. Tell Captain Martinez to inform the Zilani that Earth welcomes them. We'll find a way to help them. On the dying alien ship, Kethvar felt the bioship systems failing around him. But for the first time in 3 years, he also felt something else. Hope. 3 weeks after the Zilani arrived at Earth, Dr. Susan Blake stood on the floating platform in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and watched the alien refugees trying to adapt to their new home. The morning sun reflected off the water, creating dancing patterns of light that reminded her of the way the Zilani skin glowed when they were happy. But today, very few of them were glowing. The children are getting sick, reported Dr. Peter Collins as he climbed out of the water. His diving suit dripped with seawater and his face showed deep concern. Their skin is turning gray and they won't eat the food we've prepared for them. Susan nodded grimly. Setting up the temporary ocean settlement had seemed like a good idea at first. The Zilani were water people, so putting them in Earth's oceans made sense. But nothing was turning out to be as simple as they had hoped. What about the water purification? She asked. Peter's expression brightened slightly. That's the one good news I have. Watch this. He pulled out a small container of dirty brown water from the harbor. It smelled terrible and had pieces of trash floating in it. Yesterday, one of the young Zilani named Yathara showed me this. Peter poured the dirty water into a larger tank where 3 Zilani were swimming. As soon as the polluted water entered the tank, the aliens began to glow brighter. Their skin patterns changed, swirling like underwater galaxies. Within minutes, the water became crystal clear. They can clean water just by being in it, Peter explained. It's some kind of biological process. The pollution doesn't hurt them. They actually seem to feed on it and turn it into pure water. Susan stared at the clean water in amazement. Do they know how important this could be? Before Peter could answer, shouts erupted from the communication tent nearby. Susan and Peter ran toward the noise and found Captain Lisa Martinez arguing with someone on the video screen. You cannot be serious, Lisa was saying to the screen. Susan looked at the monitor and saw Senator Richard Hayes, his face red with anger. Captain Martinez, I am completely serious. These aliens represent a clear threat to human safety, and I demand they be removed from Earth waters immediately. Senator, they're refugees, Lisa replied, trying to keep her voice calm. They have nowhere else to go. They're invaders, Hayes shot back. And now I'm getting reports that they're contaminating our oceans with alien bacteria. The fishing industry is in panic, Susan stepped forward. Senator Hayes, I'm Dr. Blake, the project coordinator. There is no contamination. In fact, the Zilani are helping to clean the water. Hayes laughed bitterly. Clean the water? Dr. Blake, do you have any idea what's happening on the mainland? Protests in every major city. People are terrified that these creatures are going to poison our food supply or bring alien diseases. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. The senator's face grew more serious. And that's not the worst part. This morning, Dr. Helen Foster died during a routine interaction with one of your Zilani. How do you explain that? Susan felt her heart stop. Helen Foster was a marine biologist who had been working directly with the Zilani to understand their needs. She was young, enthusiastic, and had been making real progress with the alien children. What happened? Lisa asked quietly. According to the witnesses, Dr. Foster was trying to comfort a sick Zilani child. She touched the creature's hand and within seconds she collapsed, dead from some kind of toxic poisoning. The tent fell silent except for the sound of waves against the platform. Susan felt the weight of 50,000 lives pressing down on her shoulders. We need to investigate this immediately, she said finally. Hayes leaned forward on the screen. You need to evacuate those aliens before more people die. I'm calling for an emergency session of Congress tomorrow. After the senator ended the call, Susan, Peter, and Lisa stood in uncomfortable silence. Through the tent walls they could hear the musical sounds of Zilani voices, but today the song sounded sad and worried. I'll go talk to Kethvar, Lisa said. We need to understand what happened. An hour later, Lisa sat across from Elder Kethvar in the underwater habitat that had been built for the Zilani leaders. The translation device worked better now, but she could still see the frustration in his large eyes when words didn't come out right. Tell me about Dr. Foster, Lisa said gently. Kethvar's skin patterns dimmed to almost gray. Helen Friend was a kind person, helped young ones eat, learn, but young one, Nethalan, was fearsick. Fearsick? When Zilani have too much fear, skin makes all poison water, is protection from danger. But Nethalan could not control. When Helen Friend touched, poison went into her skin. Lisa felt a mixture of relief and sadness. It had been an accident, not an attack. But that wouldn't make it easier to explain to the frightened humans back on land. Can you teach your people to control this? She asked. Kethvar nodded slowly. Yes, but need time. Need safe place to heal from Star Eater fear. That evening, Susan stood in the communication center watching news reports from around the world. Every screen showed the same thing, angry crowds demanding that the aliens leave Earth. In New York, people held signs reading "Humans first" and "Send them back." In London, protesters threw rocks at the building where alien supporters were meeting. In Tokyo, the government announced they were closing their ports to any ships carrying alien refugees. But there were other voices too. Scientists who talked about the amazing things they could learn from the Zilani, environmental groups who were excited about the water purification abilities, religious leaders who spoke about helping those in need. It's getting worse, reported Commander Jake Morrison as he entered the communication center. 3 more countries have closed their borders to anything connected to the Zilani project. Susan turned off the monitors. What about the investigation into Helen's death? The autopsy confirmed what Kethvar told us. Accidental poisoning from alien skin toxins. But the media is calling it the first alien human casualty. Even though it was an accident? Jake nodded grimly. Fear doesn't care about facts. Susan. The next morning brought more bad news. Dr. Peter Collins had been working with a team of Zilani to test their water purification abilities in the heavily polluted harbor near Los Angeles. The results were incredible. Water that had been toxic for decades became clean enough to drink. But when the local news reported the story, they focused on something else entirely. Aliens experimenting on American waters, read the headline. What are they really doing to our oceans? Susan watched the news report in disbelief. The reporter stood on a beach, pointing at the clean water behind him as if it was evidence of alien contamination. Local fishermen reported that the water near the alien settlement has changed color and smell, the reporter said seriously. Scientists claim this is a good thing, but many residents are asking, should we trust aliens to experiment with our environment? The report then showed interviews with angry locals. First they kill one of our scientists, now they're poisoning our water, said one man. When is enough enough? Susan turned off the television and walked outside onto the platform. In the distance, she could see Zilani family swimming together, their children playing games that made beautiful patterns of light in the water. They had traveled across the galaxy just to survive, and now they were being blamed for trying to help their new home. But as she watched, she noticed something that gave her hope. A small group of human marine biologists were in the water with the Zilani, learning to communicate through the light patterns on their skin. Despite all the fear and anger, some humans were still trying to understand and help. Elder Kethavar surfaced near the platform and swam over to where Susan stood. "Dr. Blake, friend," he said, his English getting better every day. "We bring trouble to Earth people. Maybe we should go." Susan looked down at the alien leader. His skin was dim with sadness, and she could see the weight of his people's survival on his shoulders. "Where would you go?" she asked. Kethavar was quiet for a long moment. "Nowhere," he finally said. "We have nowhere." That night, Susan couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony looking out at the ocean, where bioluminescent patterns showed where the Zilani were resting. Tomorrow, Congress would vote on whether to force the aliens to leave Earth. The protests were getting bigger and more violent. But she also knew that sending the Zilani away meant sending them to die in the cold space between stars. As she watched, a shooting star crossed the sky above the ocean. For a moment, Susan let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, humans would choose compassion over fear. 2 months after Dr. Helen Foster's accidental death, the world had changed in ways no one expected. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the new underwater research station, watching through the clear walls as humans and Zilani worked, side by side in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. "The joint exploration mission found something incredible," reported Dr. Amy Chen as she entered the command center. Her hair was still wet from diving and her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Jake, you need to see this." On the main screen, images appeared from the ocean floor 2 miles below. Strange metal formations jutted up from the seabed, glowing with the same blue light that the Zilani used in their technology. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. "Rare earth metals. More than we've ever seen in one place. But that's not the amazing part." Amy switched to another image. "Look at this." The new picture showed a Zilani engineer named Velthara, working alongside human scientists. She was using her natural bioelectric abilities to power scanning equipment that normal human technology couldn't operate at such depths. "Working together, we can mine resources that neither species could reach alone," Amy explained. "The Zilani can survive the pressure and provide power, while we have the engineering knowledge to build the extraction equipment." Jake studied the images carefully. After 2 months of fear and protests, finally there was some good news. "How are the translation efforts going?" Amy's smile grew wider. "That's the other breakthrough. Come with me." They walked through the station's corridors, passing viewing windows where Zilani children played with human children in specially designed play areas filled with both air and water. The sight still amazed Jake. Despite all the fear and anger from the surface world, down here cooperation was growing every day. In the linguistics lab, they found Dr. Amy Chen working with a young Zilani named Neth Allen. This was the same young alien who had accidentally caused Dr. Foster's death, but now he was helping to build bridges between the species. "Show Commander Morrison what we discovered," Amy said to Neth Allen. The young Zilani's skin began to glow in complex patterns. As the lights pulsed and swirled, a computer nearby began translating the patterns into English words on a screen. "The old songs speak of the dry world with deep hearts," the translation read. "When the star swallower comes to end all things, the dry people will offer their hands to the water people, and together they will stand against the darkness." Jake read the words twice. "This is from Zilani history? Ancient prophecy," Neth Allen said in careful English. "My grandmother sang it to me before the Star Eater came. We thought it meant nothing. But now we know Earth is the dry world with deep hearts," Amy finished. "Jake, they may have been looking for us specifically, not just any planet that would take them in." Before Jake could respond, alarms started sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed and his communication device buzzed with an urgent message. "Commander Morrison to the surface immediately," came the voice of Captain Lisa Martinez. "We have a problem." An hour later, Jake stood on the deck of the research ship floating above the underwater station. The ocean around them was filled with boats, Military ships, news vessels, and protest ships all circling like sharks. What's the situation? Jake asked Lisa. Senator Hayes arrived this morning with a congressional inspection team, Lisa explained, pointing to a large government vessel nearby. But that's not the worst part. Look at the long-range sensors. Jake studied the readings on the portable screen Lisa handed him. Far out in space, beyond the orbit of Pluto, the sensors had detected something that made his blood run cold. Is that what I think it is? Lisa nodded grimly. Long-range deep space scanners picked it up 3 hours ago. Whatever destroyed the Zilani homeworld, it's coming this way. We estimate it will reach our solar system in about 200 years. The void cascade? That's what the Zilani call it. But Jake, we don't think it's natural. The pattern of movement, the way it consumes matter, it looks like technology. Ancient, massive, and hostile. Jake stared at the readings. The same force that had destroyed an entire star system was now heading toward Earth. Do the Zilani know? Elder Kethver confirmed it an hour ago. He's been expecting this. Apparently, the void cascade follows refugee populations. It's like it can sense where survivors go. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. By accepting the Zilani refugees, Earth had become a target. The very act of compassion that made humans special might have doomed their planet. Senator Hayes is demanding a full briefing, Lisa continued. He wants to know if bringing the Zilani here put Earth in danger. What do we tell him? The truth. That we have 200 years to find a solution, and that solution probably involves working with the refugees, not getting rid of them. In the congressional briefing room aboard the government ship, the tension was thick enough to cut. Senator Hayes sat at the head of the table, flanked by military advisors and government scientists. Across from them sat Dr. Susan Blake, Elder Kethvar, and the human team that had been working with the Zilani. Let me understand this correctly, Senator Hayes said, his voice cold and controlled. By accepting these aliens onto our planet, we have attracted the attention of something that destroys entire solar systems. Senator, Dr. Blake began, the situation is more complex than yes or no, Doctor. Did we put Earth in danger by helping these creatures? Kethvar's skin patterns flickered with distress, but he spoke up before anyone else could answer. Senator Hayes' person, my people brought danger, yes, but also brought hope. Hope? Hayes laughed bitterly. You brought a planet-killing weapon to our doorstep. We brought knowledge, Kethvar replied. Knowledge of how to fight Star Swallower. The room fell silent. Hayes leaned forward. Explain. Kethvar's skin began to glow in the complex patterns that the translation computers could now read fluently. My people had pieces of defense technology, but pieces only, not complete. When Star Swallower came to our world, we tried to use Broken Shield. Failed. World died. But here, Elder Kethvar continued, his patterns growing brighter, we find missing pieces. Human minds work different than Zilani minds. Human technology fills gaps in our knowledge. Together we can build what neither could build alone. Dr. Peter Collins stood up from his seat. Senator, we've been analyzing the Zilani defense technology. It's called a resonance barrier. The theory is sound, but they're right, it was incomplete. However, combined with human engineering and manufacturing capabilities, we might actually be able to build an effective planetary defense. Might? The Zilani biotechnology creates harmonic frequencies that can disrupt the void cascade's matter consumption process. But it requires massive amounts of precisely controlled energy. Human fusion technology could provide that energy, guided by Zilani biological computers. Senator Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Around the table, everyone waited for his response. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Collins, what are our chances of success? Unknown, sir. But I can tell you our chances without the Zilani knowledge, 0. That evening, Jake stood on the observation deck of the underwater station, watching the most remarkable sight he had ever seen. In the water below, teams of humans and Zilani were working together on the first prototype resonance barrier generator. The device looked like a giant crystal flower, grown from Zilani biotechnology but powered by human fusion cores. As it activated, the water around it began to shimmer with rainbow colors, and the metal formations on the ocean floor resonated with harmonic frequencies. It's beautiful, said Dr. Amy Chen as she joined him at the window. Will it work? Jake asked. The small-scale tests are promising, but to protect an entire solar system, Amy shook her head. We'll need hundreds of these devices placed throughout the solar system, and we'll need perfect coordination between human technology and Zilani biosystems. Can we do it? Amy pointed down at the water, where human and Zilani children were playing together, their laughter mixing with musical alien songs. 6 months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now look at them. If we can learn to work together this well in just a few months, imagine what we can accomplish in 200 years. Jake nodded, but his mind was troubled. In space, invisible to human eyes, sensors continued to track the approaching void cascade. Whatever it was, it had already consumed dozens of worlds and was now heading straight for Earth. But as he watched the humans and Zilani working together below, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not just hope, but determination. The refugees had brought danger to Earth, yes, but they had also brought knowledge, technology, and most importantly, proof that different species could work together against impossible odds. The void cascade might be coming, but it would find Earth ready, and it would find that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from standing together. In the depths of the ocean, the prototype resonance barrier pulsed with combined human and Zilani energy, sending waves of harmonic frequencies out into the dark water. It was small, experimental, and untested against real danger, but it was a beginning. 1 year after the first Zilani refugees arrived at Earth, Admiral Kevin Brooks stood in the war room deep beneath the Pentagon, staring at intelligence reports that kept him awake at night. The walls were covered with star maps showing the path of destruction left by the void cascade as it moved through the galaxy. Show me the latest projections, he ordered the intelligence officer beside him, Lieutenant. Colonel Janet Ross activated the holographic display. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with red dots marking destroyed solar systems. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The void cascade wasn't just consuming random star systems. It was following the escape routes of refugee populations. We've confirmed 17 destroyed worlds in the past 5 years, Ross reported. Each one was a planet that had accepted refugees from previous attacks. The pattern suggests that whatever is controlling the cascade can track large population movements across interstellar distances. So by helping the Zilani, we painted a target on ourselves, Brooks said grimly. Yes, sir, but the good news is that we now have a much better understanding of what we're facing. The hologram changed to show detailed scans of the approaching threat. What had once looked like a cosmic storm was now revealed to be something far more sinister. The void cascade isn't a natural phenomenon, Ross explained. It's a collection of massive machines, each one the size of a small moon. Our xenobiologists are calling them harvesters. They strip entire worlds of all matter and energy, then use that material to build more of themselves. Brooks studied the images. The harvesters looked like twisted metal spiders with thousands of legs that could extend for hundreds of miles. Their bodies pulsed with the same dark energy that consumed stars. How long do we have? Our best estimates say 180 years before they reach Earth. But Admiral, there's something else you need to know. The hologram shifted again, showing several bright dots moving through space toward Earth. 3 more refugee fleets have been detected heading in our direction, all from worlds that were destroyed by the harvesters. Brooks felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. Earth was becoming a gathering point for the survivors of galactic destruction. Each new group of refugees would make Earth an even bigger target. What do we know about these new arrivals? The first fleet belongs to a species called the Korathi. They're insect-like beings from a desert world. Their ships will arrive in 6 months. The second group calls themselves the Threnodi. They appear to be energy beings from a gas giant that was consumed last year. The third fleet, Ross paused, checking her notes. The third fleet is harder to identify, but they're broadcasting mathematical sequences that suggest high intelligence. And they're all coming here because they heard we took in the Zilani? Word spreads fast among refugee populations, sir. Earth has become known as the planet that says yes when others say no. 2 hours later, Brooks was in the underwater research station, watching Dr. Martin Wells work on the latest resonance barrier prototype. The device had grown much larger and more complex since the first tests a year ago. The breakthrough came when we started combining human neural patterns with Zilani bioelectric fields. Wells explained as he adjusted the controls. Separately, neither technology is powerful enough to disrupt the harvesters. But together, the device activated, and the water around it began to glow with swirling patterns of light. The energy readings on the monitors spiked to levels that would have been impossible with either human or Zilani technology alone. It works on the principle of harmonic resonance, Wells continued. The harvesters consume matter by breaking down atomic bonds. The resonance barrier creates frequencies that interfere with that process, essentially making matter invisible to their consumption beams. But will it scale up? Brooks asked. We're talking about protecting an entire solar system. That's where our new allies come in, said Elder Kethvar as he swam up to the observation window. His English had improved dramatically over the past year. Each refugee species brings new knowledge. Karathi understand harvester attack patterns from surviving 3 encounters. Threnodi know energy manipulation techniques we never imagined. Brooks nodded, but privately he wondered if Earth could handle 3 more refugee populations on top of the 50,000 Zilani already living in the oceans. 6 months later, the first Karathi ships arrived at Earth. Captain Lisa Martinez led the contact team to meet them, but nothing could have prepared her for what she found. The Karathi were unlike anything humans had encountered. They stood 8 feet tall on 6 legs, with bodies covered in natural armor that looked like polished metal. Their faces had multiple eyes arranged in geometric patterns, and they communicated through a combination of clicking sounds and chemical scents. We are Hive Leader Zixthera, their leader announced through a translation device. We bring warning and knowledge to the soft world people who welcome the lost. Welcome to Earth, Lisa replied carefully. We're honored to meet you. Honor is luxury for species not hunted by metal deathbringers, Zixthera clicked. We have seen 17 worlds die to harvesters. Each time same pattern. They send scout probes first, small metal spiders that study defense systems. Then comes the fleet. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Scout probes? We haven't detected any probes, because they hide in empty space between planets. They watch, they learn, they report back. Harvesters only attack when they know they can win. Over the following weeks, the Karathi shared their hard-won knowledge of harvester tactics. They had survived 3 attacks by being mobile, hiding their population in underground caverns and moving constantly. But they also brought disturbing news. The harvesters were learning and adapting with each world they consumed. First attacks used simple matter consumption beams. Zixthera explained to the combined human-Zilani research team. But later attacks used new weapons, energy drains that shut down all technology, gravity manipulators that tear planets apart from inside. Dr. Susan Blake studied the Karathi battle recordings with growing alarm. They're getting smarter. Not smarter, Zixthera corrected. They learn from each consumed world. Every species they destroy teaches them new ways to destroy others. 3 months after the Karathi arrived, the Threnodi ships entered Earth's solar system. But calling them ships wasn't quite accurate. They were more like controlled energy fields that moved through space at incredible speeds. The first contact with the Threnodi was unlike anything Earth had experienced. Instead of landing, they sent portions of themselves into specially prepared energy containment fields. The beings that emerged looked like dancing flames made of pure light, constantly shifting between colors that human eyes couldn't quite process. We are the memory of Threndal, the world that sang with storms. They communicated directly into human minds. We felt the death song of your ocean friends across the void, and came to add our voices to the resistance harmony. Working with the Threnodi was challenging because they existed partially outside normal space-time. But they brought knowledge of dimensional physics that revolutionized the Resonance Barrier project. They showed human scientists how to create energy fields that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them much harder for the harvesters to detect or counter. Dr. Martin Wells was practically glowing with excitement as he showed the latest test results to Admiral Brooks. The multidimensional barriers are 90% more effective than our previous versions. And with Karathi tactical knowledge helping us place them strategically throughout the solar system, we might actually have a real defense. But Brooks was troubled by reports from Earth's surface. The arrival of more alien refugees had rekindled protests around the world. Cities were overcrowded as human populations moved inland to make room for Zilani ocean settlements. The Karathi required underground spaces that interfered with existing tunnel systems. And the Threnodi energy beings accidentally disrupted electronic devices just by existing near them. Admiral, reported his aide. "We're getting reports of riots in 12 major cities. People are demanding that the government stop accepting alien refugees. What's the alternative?" Brooks asked. "Send them back to die? Some politicians are suggesting we relocate all the refugees to Mars or other planets. With what ships? We don't have the technology for large-scale interplanetary migration." Before his aide could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. On the main screen, urgent messages flashed from the deep space monitoring stations. "Admiral Brooks to the command center immediately," came the announcement. Brooks ran to the command center, where he found the staff gathered around the main display screen. Commander Jake Morrison looked up as he entered, his face pale. "Sir, the deep space arrays just detected something new. It's not the main harvester fleet." On the screen, enhanced sensor images showed dozens of small dark objects moving through the outer solar system. They were roughly spherical, about the size of large asteroids. But their movement patterns were clearly artificial. "Scout probes," whispered Elder Kethvar, who had been brought up from the underwater station. "They have found us." Brooks stared at the screen as the implication sank in. The harvesters hadn't just detected Earth's refugee population. 3 years after the first Zilani refugees arrived at Earth, President William Carter stood before the largest gathering in human history. The Global Unity Assembly had brought together representatives from every nation on Earth and every refugee species that now called the planet home. The massive underwater dome that housed the assembly was a marvel of combined human and alien engineering. Its walls transparent to show the ocean depths where all 4 species now worked together. Carter looked out at the crowd and saw faces that would have been impossible to imagine just a few years ago. Human delegates sat next to Zilani elders whose skin glowed with nervous patterns. Karathi hive leaders clicked quietly to each other, while their multiple eyes tracked the proceedings. Threnody energy beings floated in containment fields, their colors shifting with their emotions. "The question before us today," Carter began, his voice carried by translation devices to every species present, "is not whether we can fight the harvesters. We know we can. The question is whether we will." On the massive screens around the dome, images appeared showing the completed resonance barrier network. Hundreds of the crystalline defense stations now orbited throughout the solar system, from Mercury's blazing surface to the ice fields beyond Pluto. Each station pulsed with energy that combined human fusion technology, Zilani bioharmonics, Karathi tactical algorithms, and Threnody dimensional physics. "General Patricia Stone still believes we should evacuate," Carter continued. "Build generation ships and flee to another galaxy, as far from the harvesters as possible." General Stone stood up from her seat in the Earth delegation. Her hair had gone gray in the past 3 years, and her face showed the strain of preparing for an impossible war. "Mr. President, I'm not ashamed to advocate for retreat," she said firmly. "We have the technology now to build ships that could carry our entire population to safety. Why risk everything on a defense that has never been tested against the real enemy?" Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The evacuation option had gained support among many, humans who still feared the aliens and wanted to return to a purely human existence because there is no safety in running, came a voice from the Karathi section. Hive leader Zix Thara rose to her full 8-foot height, her metallic armor glinting in the underwater lights. "We tried running for 50 years. Harvesters followed us across 3 galaxies. They do not stop. They do not rest. They consume until nothing is left." Elder Kethavar's skin patterns began to glow as he prepared to speak. His English was now perfect after 3 years of constant interaction with humans. "My people also tried to run. We sent ships in every direction when our world was dying. Most were caught and consumed. Only we few survived, and only because Earth people opened their hearts to strangers." The Threnody representative pulsed with colors that the translation system converted to words. "The song of the Void Devourers grows stronger with each consumed world. If Earth falls, the harmony of resistance dies with it. There will be nowhere left to run." Carter nodded and activated another display. This one showed the current location of the Harvester fleet, a vast cloud of mechanical death just 2 years away from Earth. Dr. Susan Blake will now present the final defense assessment. Dr. Blake had become the unofficial leader of the interspecies cooperation effort. Her hair was streaked with white from 3 years of constant stress, but her eyes burned with determination as she addressed the assembly. "The Sol system resonance barrier is ready," she announced. "We have 437 defense stations positioned throughout our solar system. Each one is powered by human fusion cores, guided by Zilani biocomputers, protected by Karathi defensive protocols, and enhanced with Threnody dimensional technology." She paused, looking around the assembly at the 4 species that had learned to work together against impossible odds. "But the harvesters are not our only enemy. Fear is division is, the belief that we are too different to stand together." Her voice grew stronger. 3 years ago, humans had never seen an alien. Today, our children play together in schools that exist both underwater and in the air. Our scientists work in laboratories that combine technologies no single species could have imagined. On the screens, images appeared of the new world that had emerged from the refugee crisis. Underwater cities where Zilani and humans lived side by side. Underground networks where Karathi engineers worked with human miners. Energy research stations where Threnody beings shared their knowledge with human physicists. "The harvesters consume worlds by dividing their defenders," Blake continued. "They corrupt communication networks, turn species against each other, make allies into enemies. But they have never faced anything like what we've built here." Admiral Kevin Brooks stood up from his seat. As the military commander of the Combined Defense Forces, his words carried special weight. "Every wargame simulation we've run shows the same result," he announced. "If we stand together, we win. If we divide, we all die. It's that simple." "But what if you're wrong?" called out Senator Richard Hayes, one of the few human politicians who still oppose the alien alliance. "What if the barriers fail? What if the harvesters have weapons we haven't considered?" Brooks met his gaze steadily. "Then we'll adapt. That's what this alliance has taught us, that together we can solve problems none of us could handle alone." The debate continued for hours. Some argued for evacuation, others for standing and fighting. But gradually something became clear. The refugees had not weakened Earth. They had made it stronger. Captain Lisa Martinez, now Admiral Martinez, stood to address the assembly. She had been there for first contact with every refugee species, had seen the alliance grow from desperate necessity to genuine cooperation. 3 years ago, "I was terrified when I first stepped aboard that dying Zilani ship," she said. "I didn't know if we could trust them, if they would bring disease or danger to our world. But you know what I found? I found people. Different from us, yes, but people who loved their children, who grieved for their lost homes, who were willing to die rather than live without hope." She gestured to Elder Keithvar, whose skin was glowing with patterns that every human in the assembly could now read as pride and affection. "The Zilani didn't just bring us their problems. They brought us their solutions. The Karathi didn't just want our protection. They offered their knowledge. The Threnody didn't demand our resources. They shared their power. Every species that found refuge here has made us stronger." The final speaker was unexpected. Young Nethalin, the Zilani who had accidentally caused Dr. Helen Foster's death, swam to the center of the assembly. Now fully grown, he had become one of the most skilled operators of the resonance barrier technology. "I killed a human through ignorance and fear," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the water. "Dr. Foster died because I could not control my body's panic. But her people did not turn away from us in anger. Instead, they learned to understand us better. They made my mistake into wisdom that saves lives every day." His skin patterns began to pulse in the ancient cadence of Zilani prophecy. The old song spoke true. The dry world with deep hearts would welcome the water people. Together we would stand against the star swallower. But the prophecy did not end there. It said the alliance would become a beacon that calls all lost children home. On the screens around the assembly, new images appeared. Long-range sensors had detected more refugee fleets heading toward Earth. Dozens of species, all fleeing the harvester advance. All looking for the one place in the galaxy that said yes when everyone else said no. President Carter called for the final vote. The choice was simple but profound. Flee to unknown space and hope the harvesters wouldn't follow. Or make a stand at Earth with all the refugee species united in defense. The vote wasn't even close. Every human delegation voted to stay and fight. Every refugee species pledged their full support. The few voices calling for evacuation were drowned out by a chorus that spoke in 4 different languages, but carried the same message. Here we stand. 6 months later, Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the ESV Sanctuary, humanity's most advanced warship, built with technology from all 4 Alliance species. Through the viewports, she could see the first test of the complete Sol system resonance barrier. The barrier activated with a pulse of light that traveled from Mercury to Pluto in seconds. For a moment, the entire solar system glowed with rainbow colors as human technology, Zolani biology, Karathi tactics, and Threnody dimensional science worked in perfect harmony. "Barrier test successful," reported the sensor operator, a young human woman working alongside a Karathi engineer. "All stations reporting full operational status." Martinez nodded, but her eyes were fixed on the long-range displays showing the approaching harvester fleet. They would arrive in 18 months, bringing death and destruction that had consumed 1,000 worlds. But they had never faced anything like Earth. In the depths of the Pacific, human and Zolani children played together in schools that existed both above and below the water. In the asteroid belt, Karathi miners worked with human engineers to build the raw materials for more defense stations. In the energy research labs orbiting Jupiter, Threnody beings shared their knowledge with scientists from 3 other species. The refugees had come to Earth with nothing but